Hope you're ready for another crazy series of My Hero Academia leaks, and this time, things are getting pretty out of control, right? As All For One more or less creates his own version of One For All, it seems like. But how does that happen, right? How do we get to that point? Let's explain the entire chapter until then, and we could all try to figure out what happens at the end together. Shout out to Rukasu, Justice, and Dabi's pole dance for the leaks and all the information in the summaries, and let's get to it. So My Hero Academia chapter 369 is titled An Extended Life. According to Rukasu, the chapter begins with a flashback of All For One choking the second user as he's bleeding. He says the second user's quirk was only capable of controlling small objects, and we see All For One crushing a bullet headed his way from behind without touching it. And looking at the actual pages, that is what we see. We see a destroyed cityscape, the second user bleeding from his face with a large gash across his face, and as All For One holds him by the throat, likely taking his original quirk, which is the quirk transmission that we see Deku using now, which really raises the question as to whether or not All For One does have these quirks inside of him as well. There is a bullet that comes at the bottom of the page, and on the next page, which is page 2, we do see All For One pretty much just catch the bullet in air, right, with some sort of telekinesis, flattening the bullet out and crushing it while he stares down the second user, right, with an eye full of rage and a face full of tears. So I guess All For One actually is a crybaby. Mark that down as another similarity between him and Deku. But moving on, we see the second user actually, when he's dying, is smiling. And the fact that he's smiling and All For One is crying here really actually presents some interesting questions about what exactly happened here. But I also feel like this confirms my theory that the second user's scar on his face is from the battle that he had when he died. A lot of people were trying to tell me that, oh, the scar on his face means that he healed, like he wouldn't be in the vestige world with a scar if he didn't actually have a scar in real life. And again, like I was saying, it definitely was the injury that he took when he was dying, right, from All For One. And we do get to see that pretty much in this chapter with him about to die from All For One and us seeing blood all over his face. Now, remembering the second user, All For One says that he was nothing more than an annoying insect with a quirk that was nothing more than a little hindrance. So he doesn't understand why Deku can use it in such a strong way and why he can see the second and Yoichi's ghost behind Deku. And this confirms something else that we were questioning the other week, and that is whether or not All For One can actually see the vestiges behind Deku. And it does seem like that is the case, that he can see them, and I'm willing to bet that he can actually also hear them as well. After his realization that he can see the two users, this is when we see Deku finishing the attack that he started at the very end of last chapter, and we see Shigaraki bounce against the ground, right, leaving cubes and all sorts of stuff in his wake as he hits the ground after the impact of Deku's attack. But Deku immediately follows that up, right, and dashes straight towards the ground to Shigaraki. And that's when we get some exposition where it tells us that the quirk is stronger now because of One For All. And because of that, whereas before it could only control small objects like, you know, a bullet or something like that, now the second user's quirk can actually control individual cells. And for that to be the case, that leads me to believe that transmission, or I guess gear shift, as we have Rukasu telling us that the official name of the quirk is gear shift and not transmission according to this chapter. So if that is the case, if it's the kind of quirk that controls the speed of anything that it touches, then likely if Deku is capable of controlling individual cells, I would have to believe that the quirk can spread to the nearest object, right? Sort of like Decay or Ochako's float. Because if not, Deku just, you know, accelerating one cell in his body, I don't think would do all that much. He would have to do all the cells in a person's body, or a significant portion of them at least, or his body, to really show the effect that we're seeing on page. Now, the narrator continues to tell us, used together with the raw strength of One For All, this gives rise to a power that is able to distort the foundations of the world. Next, Deku hits Tomura All For One with 5 Detroit smashes, all at basically the same time. And we get 5 layered smash sound effects on the page, all layered on top of each other, right? To show us, like Horikoshi has been for the last chapter or two, that these hits are happening so fast that they're literally just back to back to back to back. And we actually see as Deku punches Shigaraki into the ground with these Detroit smashes right after he bounced off the ground, that this does leave 5 impacts or 5 craters into the ground that just go deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So that is really interesting, and that is some really good attention to detail by Horikoshi, who made Deku do 5 smashes and also made 5 craters for Shigaraki. Shigaraki. Shigaraki, or I guess All For One's mind, is scrambling as he tries to figure out what to do as Deku just blitzes him down and tears him apart. And at this point, Deku is flying around the battlefield like a bullet, but Tomura All For One notices that his last blows weren't actually as strong as the first ones, probably because he has no more Fajin energy left in stock. So Shigaraki actually prepares himself to intercept Deku's next attack, right? He readies himself, he swings his arm, and he completely misses because Deku shifts from high speed in the first gear and completely slows down, right? It's not that he's slow, it's just that he's not as fast as he was before, so he doesn't make it to Shigaraki in the time that Shigaraki is anticipating, so he more or less stops going as fast very quickly to avoid Shigaraki's attack. As the second user is talking to Deku and giving him advice about what to do, Danger Sense actually kicks in for Deku, and he senses that Shigaraki is about to send an attack his way and hit him with a crazy uppercut. So again, with one of his fists in the other hand, Deku does a sort of gear shift motion in the air to apply the second user's quirk to himself, and that's when Deku uses Smokescreen, jumps high with Float, and pulls Tomura All For One with Black Whip. He then prepares for his next attack, charged with Fajin that he stored with the Quintuple Detroit Smash. And that's why this is really smart of Deku, because Fajin is pretty much stored up when he does repeated movements, right? So by doing repeated Detroit Smashes, by taking advantage of the second user's quirk to be able to do them so fast back to back, that actually allows him to build up Fajin energy literally from fighting, which then fuels his other quirks, right? Like now with One For All completed, Deku's quirks have kind of become an engine for combat. And if you notice here, like Rukasu pointed out, Deku is actually using all of the One For All quirks together, right? Not fused together like last chapter where he was combining quirks, but he definitely is using them all individually. Shigaraki gets yanked out of the smoke by the Black Whip, and we see Deku in the air preparing another massive blow, this time charging his fist full of Fajin energy, right? We pretty much only see the Fajin energy in Deku's feet and in his fist because it seems like it's focused in those two locations. And the second user says that what Tomura All For One should fear is not the quirks, but the will that dwells within them. And Deku remembers Banjo's word that he would be the one to complete One For All back in the joint training arc, and he yells that he's gonna end this once and for all, so All For One won't hurt anyone else. And I do see on the speech bubbles, which by the way are starting to get a little shaky, which I do think implies that Deku is starting to get a little tired or is starting to feel a little faint, but I do see in at least the raw text for the speech bubbles, little numbers, right? Like 6th or 4th, 5th, 3rd, 2nd, right? So I do think at some point in this page, Deku does mention every individual One For All user to All For One here, right before he tries to hit him with this legendary smash. And as the second user says that All For One should worry about the combined will of all the users, we get this amazing page, right? That has to be a poster on my wall or something, or a tattoo, I don't know. It looks really cool, of Deku launching forward with a smash of his metallic kind of arm plates filled with Fajin energy that's just spilling out. His hair's all spiky, he's covered in energy, it just looks really cool, and we see every single One For All user behind him all preparing a punch along with him to hit All For One with a punch. And I think that's really awesome. Like, it just looks amazing, and I'm sure in the anime with all the colors and everything, even just some of the colorings that we're gonna see, I cannot wait to see what people are gonna do with this with the colorings. And for a second we see Deku's eyes kind of like white over, like kind of go completely rage mode for a second, but he grits his teeth, and again he remembers the words that the Black Whip user said to him about him completing the quirk and him making his anger work for him. But his pupils do come back out and he makes an angry face and screams at Tomura All For One that he is going to end everything, as we see panels of Mirio picking up Nejire. We see various people scattered on the battlefield. We do get an update on Edgeshot actually inside of Bakugo. We can see that he is still in there. He is a little head kind of scrolling around through Bakugo trying to fix what he can. And again, we do see Bakugo on the ground actually with Best Jeanist next to him, and we don't have any update on whether or not Bakugo is actually about to wake up or stand up, but we do see Jeanist looking at him at least. And after all of that and Deku shouting, Deku hits Tomura All For One with an amazing punch, right? That just pierces right through his chest. It blows a hole right through the center of Tomura All For One's mask and knocks off every single finger that was surrounding his body. And I think that's really, really awesome. I feel like it's really smart for Horikoshi to cover Shigaraki in these fingers and hands, right? Just to have Deku pretty much punch them all off and have them going flying, because that's gonna look great once it's animated, right? Just a bunch of fingers flying everywhere while Deku punches a massive hole through Tomura All For One's chest. Now, as Shigaraki falls to the ground, actually finally looking defeated, the first user of One For All looks into the hole in Shigaraki's chest, and he's kind of more metaphorically looking into Shigaraki himself, right? And he sees the vestige of All For One with blood coming from his stomach, just kind of shooting out everywhere within the vestige world as a ghost. And Yoichi says that he can see his brother inside, and that what the round-eyed young man, Mirio, said is true. This long fight is affecting the fusion between All For One and Shigaraki. And that's when the second user says that the real deal starts now, that he needs to remember Shimura's words, Nana Shimura, right? And that he can't pass out yet. All For One, though, begins an internal monologue saying that it's unfair because he hasn't yet been able to show any of the quirks that he has, and he hasn't actually been able to show how strong he is yet, which we know is trouble for Deku, because again, it does seem like Deku is starting to get a little gassed out, and we know there is a time limit on Deku's use of the second user's quirk, and there probably is going to be some sort of blowback or thing that he has to deal with, and there's not really anyone else in the area to protect him from Shigaraki for him to cool down to be able to use the second user's quirk again, except for Bakugo, right? If Bakugo wakes up. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen. I do think Bakugo is going to wake up after whatever Shigaraki is about to do happens, and Deku does need a rest. But All For One pretty much laments the fact that he hasn't been able to show off all of his amazing quirks, and he thinks about how everything here has really just been working against him. Erasure, the flying UA base, the villains all being separated, everything is kind of against him in this situation, and this is when All For One screams, and 9 lights, very similar to the One For All lights, pop up next to Shigaraki. And it seems like Deku and Aizawa react to this, right? They do sort of react to what's happening here, and they're a little confused, with Aizawa even asking if All For One has another trick up his sleeve even still. And that's when All For One finishes his internal monologue by agreeing with Yoichi, saying that if all the efforts accumulated throughout the years are gonna define the results of this battle, then he still has a chance of winning. As we see Shigaraki's chest bulging in the area where he had the massive hole kind of like healed over, or maybe something is coming out of it, maybe it's not healed and it's just that All For One is literally about to come out of the hole in Shigaraki's chest. But something is certainly going on having to do with years of accumulated powers or years of accumulated energy, and there being 9 lights, which is the same amount of the number of quirk users for One For All, is very, very suspicious. Now, I actually feel like I have a very good idea about what's going on with All For One, but I'm gonna save that for its own theory video, so check back on this channel maybe later today, and we'll talk about what I think is going on with All For One, and what I think those strange lights are that seem to mimic One For All. But immediately after that, we get a page turn with what is the final page of the chapter, and we finally cut away from the Deku and Shigaraki and Bakugo area to Spinner's area, right? We know that Spinner is really, really big right now. He's drooling, he's kind of going a little crazy because I feel like All For One sort of turned him into his own sort of mini Makia, right? And we know that Spinner is going to try to free Kurogiri, who is sort of an important character when you want to discuss Aizawa and Shigaraki in the first place, right? Because he is the kind of person that I'm sure both of them want to be protected, but just in very different ways. So we are likely going to catch up on Spinner going through the Kurogiri area and fighting against the heroes that are there. I believe Shoji's there, right? So this is probably about the time we're going to get, I know we're not going to get a discrimination arc like Horikoshi suggested, but this is probably going to be like, you know, the sum of what that would have been dropped in the next couple chapters when we do go to this area. But sadly, next week, My Hero Academia, I know you're not going to want to hear this, is on break. So we've got to wait 2 weeks to see what's going on with Spinner, and it's going to be a while, I'm sure, before we cut back to the Deku and Shigaraki area, because now we have to catch up to all these different areas that, you know, Horikoshi kind of left on the back burner for a little too long. So those were the spoilers for My Hero Academia chapter 368. Let me know what you think, and again, check the channel again later today or tomorrow for that theory video on what is likely going on with All For One and this new sort of version of One For All, maybe? What's going on there? I'll see you guys later. It's Pineapple. Please hit that like button and subscribe. It really, really helps me out. Peace.